Okay, hey, welcome everybody. It is Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Time for Sci-Fi Distilled. Hey, Bill's already here.
Hey,
Welcome.
Bill. How are you?
So this we have decided that since we did 2001 Space Odyssey last week, we might as well just do the whole month of classic old sci-fi stuff and things that were kind of significant to the genre. So we're going way back to the beginning.
Way back
To
way back.
1927, silent film era, Fritz Lang's classic
I don't know where to start with this one.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about that one, of course, a bit. But before we get into that, of course, I'm pretty sure we got some news. So
I have a little tiny bit of news.
hey,
I have
Martin.
my
Hey, Dave.
five.
Doc. Hey, Doc. Doc's here for a change. How are you?
Hey,
Must not
Doc,
be too busy.
how are you? Okay, 5 tidbits of news. Number 1, Resident Alien has a new season coming. Season 3 is coming on February 14th. That's Valentine's Day. I have a little bonus tidbit about Resident Alien. What do Resident Alien and the show Peacemaker have in common? And I'll let you think about that.
I
And I'll
don't
go
even
through
know
the
what
other
the show
news bits.
Peacemaker is, so I'm not going
Oh,
to be.
you don't know Peacemaker? Oh, Rizzo, you got to watch Peacemaker. All right, I'll give you the answer to that question at the end of the news. Number 2, it was Agatha all along. If you enjoyed WandaVision, there's good news. Agatha, the Darkhold Diaries, is a few days away from finishing filming. We should have 9 episodes later this year. It supposedly picks up where WandaVision left off, but I'm not sure. But Agatha was the breakout character of WandaVision, and everybody loved her. So I'm pretty psyched to see this show. Number 3. Okay, so this is an interesting one, and I want to hear what you think about this, Rizzo, because the first part of this, I was like, I don't know. But then the second part of this, I was like, oh, maybe. So I want to know if this is your reaction. We have had confirmation on the Section 31 movie. We know that's happening. Patrick Stewart has mentioned a possible Picard movie. I would not hold my breath. But now Paramount is apparently developing a new Star Trek movie. Sources have told the website Deadline that while plot details are still, hush hush, the project is an origin story that takes place way before the 2009, before the 2009 Star Trek film started. Now, when I heard that, I was like, I'm not excited about that. But then I heard that Emmy nominee Toby Haynes, who was Emmy nominated director Toby Haynes, has been tapped to direct. Now, Toby, this is what excites me. Toby has directed some Black Mirror. Toby has directed some of the best Doctor Who episodes, including The Pandorica Opens and its sequel, A Christmas Carol, and The Impossible Astronaut and its sequel. And Toby he was the lead director on Andor. He didn't direct all of Andor, but he directed like 6 of the Andor episodes. So, Rizzo, what do you think? I think origin story is a bad idea, but I am excited about Toby Haynes. What do you think?
Well, I mean, that Toby being involved, that's certainly a plus, no question about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what they mean by an origin story. We kind of origin of what?
I don't know.
Where I'm at. Like we've already seen.
That is a fabulous question.
Are we rebooting Kirk again?
I don't want to reboot anything
what's the
again.
origin? Is this origin of the Federation? Is it?
The quote is the project is an origin story that takes place decades before the 2009 start. So if it's decades,
so it's got to be like Kirk's father and that, and maybe Pike. We're gonna see some more Pike.
So are we getting the Hemsworth guy back again? Like what's happening?
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm not. I assume it's the same universe, which if it's decades before.
Yeah, this is still a JJ. This is still a JJ Trek thing.
Well, then that's still on the prime timeline because the timeline didn't change until. Yeah, I don't know.
I guess. I mean, we're not going to go back.
I'm always optimistically hopeful with this kind of stuff. That they'll do something well. There's some good pieces. I don't know about the prequel stuff. I don't know what to do with Star Trek as far as films go anymore because
I agree.
It's just, we're talking about, the TNG films really, with the exception of First Contact, the rest of them really kind of stunk.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, there just really wasn't a great TNG one other than First Contact. And then, and as we all know, the joke is the odd numbered um, TOS cast movies.
Yeah. Odd number.
The
Odd
odd
number
number
Star
ones.
Trek.
Or the even number ones, I should say. The odd number ones were the
Even
bad
numbers
ones. The
Star
even
Trek.
numbers were the good ones. So anyway, yeah. So I don't know what Paramount's thinking. Clearly,
Are they thinking?
I always say
mean,
Star
are
Trek's
they?
not a great film genre. It's better on the small screen, but
And here's the thing: is none of this is really confirmed.
nothing
but
excites me anymore with this stuff because they always screw it up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's I've always been disappointed. Whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars, the movies have just been disappointing. It's just, yeah, I don't know if it's my getting old or, and just not keeping up with what's hip. Cranky old man shakes fist at the sky.
Shakes fist at
Give
clouds.
me my old shows back. I'm starting to really hate that.
Funny.
But yeah, Martin,
I don't know.
Enterprise, I would love an Enterprise. We can't to get that cast back together. That would be awesome.
That would be
Birth of the Federation.
Yeah.
Movie would actually be good, and they did start that
Birth of a Federation.
Well, that's kind of what they kind of did that at the end of Enterprise. They were starting to head that direction. So we do a Fantastic Planet. Martin says, I don't. They would booger it up.
No, don't reboot Fantastic. Yeah, no, don't do that.
So, but anyway,
some things should just. All right, let's move on. Yeah, none of this is concrete yet, so I'm not.
Yeah, this is all one of those.
It's all very still speculative,
rumor and conjecture.
But I don't know. Moving on. Speaking of rumors, number 4, Star Wars. There's a Star Wars rumor going around that they are going to do a Star Wars What If show. Do we need a Star Wars What If show?
That's just money grab.
Yeah, cash grab. And number 5, we did already do Star Wars fan films on this show, but one fan, and Rizzo brought this to my attention, one fan is making his own feature film, Kenobi, by cobbling together footage from a number of sources, including the Kenobi show, to fix Kenobi.
Yeah, they re-edit. Yeah, it's a re-edit of the original show. And
while we are very much in favor of fan films, this may be a step too far by using existing official footage. He's not the only fan to edit his own version. That has happened lots of times. And with the technology available to us, it's easier than ever. But should we, once it's something that's been officially put out, should we be messing with that?
Well, I mean, that's the mouse will end up, if they feel threatened, will squash it. And we know the mouse likes to litigate, so I would be careful.
Yeah, the mouse. The mouse has a powerful litigation.
They do. I don't know why people were so upset with. I mean, Kenobi, was it perfect? No, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was actually okay. Was it great? No. But
Yeah,
I don't know. So it's gonna be interesting. But I have heard, that they're not only they're using footage, they're deep faking some stuff.
They are deep faking a lot of stuff.
And that's like you said, with technology in the hands of the amateur or the average person. Exactly. What you can do with very, very inexpensive, the Adobe Suite alone isn't expensive at all to rent it month to month, so to speak. And amazing what you can do with some of the software. So it's better than we saw. Some of the deep fakes were better than the studio stuff.
Oh yeah. One guy got a job doing it because he did a better loop than what they had done.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like don't mess with stuff that they put out.
Yeah, I don't know. I
get his desire to fix something. I get that.
If that's the thing, I would to me, if you're going to put it out on YouTube or somewhere public, you better be prepared to have
people come in.
They're going to come down on it. If they don't even give you a cease and desist beforehand once you start advertising it, because there's a lot.
Oh God, yeah, they'll be all over you. Yeah,
especially if you crowdfund it. Forget it.
Exactly. All right, guys, those are my 5 news tidbits. While Rizzo's pulling up the drink, I will tell you, unless anybody wants to make any last-minute guesses, what Resident Alien and Peacemaker have in common. I will tell you. No one's typing, so I'm just going to tell you. So did any of you guys out there watch Peacemaker? Am I the only one who watched Peacemaker? It's a cute little 8-episode. It picks up right off where Suicide Squad left off, like after he kills Joel Kinnaman, who plays Ed on For All Mankind. Anyway, it picks up after that. It was really cute. It was really funny. I really enjoyed it. And those of you who saw it know they have this wacky, quirky little dance at the beginning of every episode. Well, that dance was choreographed by Alan Tudyk's wife. And she would grab Alan because she figured Alan had about the same amount of dance ability as John Cena, who plays Peacemaker, and would make him try stuff out. And I guess he went to rehearsals with them and would stand in for John. So imagine like you go into a dance rehearsal and like, oh, there's Alan Tudyk. I don't know. It's bizarre. It's a weird little dance. And those of you who watch Peacemaker know what I'm talking about. The very first time you see it, there's a lot of WTF going on. But by the fourth time you see it, you're like doing the steps with them. Like it's just the bizarrest little like weird marionette dance. Anyway, that's it for news tonight. What are we drinking we go back to 1927?
Metropolis. Why not?
Actually
sounds good.
Good.
So you got Mandarin absolute vodka, some lemon juice, some Mandarin liqueur, and some simple syrup. Yeah, that's actually sounds
very nice.
So a classic drink for a classic movie.
A classic drink for a classic movie.
So
all right, well, I have to ask you before we dive into this thing, which version, because there's 97 versions of this movie.
So what happened was over the years it got there, a lot of it got lost. So there was only like these bits and pieces. And apparently at some point somewhere in Argentina, in Buenos Aires,
in 2010, it was 2010.
Yeah, but somebody remembered from 1980s that they saw a 16 millimeter, I believe, version, because they wouldn't use, the problem with, I guess, 35 millimeter film, it was unstable and it actually could catch on fire. So a lot of people didn't like to store it. So they would transfer it to 16 millimeter, which was easier to store and safer to store. So apparently there was this 16 millimeter, and I hope I'm getting the story correct, from the 16 millimeter version that somebody saw in Argentina or something, or remember viewing it in 1980. Anyway, they were able to find this thing, which had, and they found a whole bunch of, plus there was some archive stuff that they found some missing footage, because the original movie was over 2 hours. And that's,
it was 150.
I remember in 1980s viewing this thing in Argentina, and it was over 2 hours long.
Yeah.
So that was probably the original Fritz Lang cut, or at least the theatrical cut. So there was a whole group that got together and they found as much of the bits and pieces and put it all back together. I'm fairly certain I watched that version because there'll be nice, clear black and white images. And then there's one that's all kind of snowy.
And then there was one section where they just had title cards because
because they
5 minutes of the movie that was
there was a section that they didn't have. Yeah. So you can watch it if you look around. If it's 200,
it's on YouTube, guys. This movie is now in the public domain, so it is on YouTube.
Yeah, we're looking at almost 100 years old. 3 more years.
Oh God, yeah. We're 2024. This thing was 2027. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm saying it's almost 100 years old.
100-year-old movie.
So
it's fabulous for a 100-year-old movie.
It is amazing. And here we are still watching it. I have to say this is probably the first and only silent movie I've ever seen end to end. I can't, you always see the clips and the stuff with the comedy stuff, the bits, but I don't think I've ever sat through a silent movie before.
I was surprised at this thing. I also watched
it's funny because I started I'd only ever seen it in chunks here and there. I'd never seen the whole thing 2.5 hours. I was surprised how long it was when I saw the running time. I'm like, this is like a Marvel movie.
Me too. I was stunned. I was like,
but it's actually amazingly, it does kind of keep you interested.
It does. It goes right along.
For what it is.
There are a couple moments where you have to kind of decide what's going on, but
absolutely. There's not a lot of title cards to it for the language. So you kind of have to just figure it out on your own what's going on.
No, but you get what's going on.
They do a good enough job in the acting sense that you get what's going on. So the basic plot, those that don't know, this is a utopian city on the surface, so to speak, where there's all kinds of advancements and then, of course, there's an underworld where there's like 2 classes. There's the upper class, people live in the sun, so to speak. And then there's a lower class that live under the city that keep the machinery running and keep the sea. So it's basically, now I was wondering, and the first thing I started watching this, I looked up when Orwell wrote 1984, because that's all I kept seeing was 1984. And I have to say, I would think Orwell had to have gotten inspiration from this film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The time
Absolutely.
machine had to have gotten inspiration from
Yeah, I
this.
mean, there's a ton. Well,
Hugo,
I mean, from
just look.
visuals, yes, but I mean, the storyline. I mean, there's so many things that you look at the opening scene where they're kind of drudging. They're just like,
Yeah,
as the shifts change and the different people
yeah.
go into the city and into the underground to run the machines. It just that's all I kept seeing was 1984, is this kind of oppressive thing. So then the guy that basically the plot again, the guy that runs the city, he has a son. The son meets this woman who he falls in typical, film from that era. They fall instantly in love, and of course she's like an activist trying to work within the system to get the people to
A little
not
more
rebel,
balance between the classes. Yeah.
but to the point in a safe kind of way. She wasn't violent, and she wasn't advocating violence. So he sees the plight of the working man, and he's joining in, and the father gets wind of this, and then we get to this weird side plot, not weird side plot, but this plot with the scientist, Rotwang. I guess
Rotwang, yes.
Rotwang. So he's invented essentially an android robot, and apparently he can make it look like anything he wants.
And this was the very first time, I believe, that they ever put the idea of a robot that's so human that as to be indistinguishable from human.
Right.
That idea was ever put on film.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. Of course, I mean, it's obvious that C-3PO was modeled after that.
C-3PO, not just C-3PO, gazillions of them.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but even if you look at her body, the way the legs were and all the joints and stuff,
and then look at his.
So much stuff it was copied from. So that's, I think, the really point. The base of the plot goes on, and he replaces the head guy replaces the love interest, the woman, with this robot in her place, and she gets them to become violent, and then apparently unbeknownst to the guy, Wang has, of course, an issue. There's some kind of weird previous love interest that we didn't know the details of, with a woman who's the mother of this.
Oh, Hell, yeah.
Hell, and he apparently both of them, and Hell had passed away somehow.
Yes.
So he was getting revenge on this top guy, and he basically has control of the robot ultimately, and makes her tell the workers to destroy the machinery, which is not what the head guy wanted. He just wanted them to disrupt them enough so that he could basically use violence against them. That's what he wanted.
Yes.
They would rise up.
Yes.
He wanted
the reason. He wanted the excuse
to slap them down. So, but it went horribly wrong. The machines were destroyed, and flooding occurred, and it's kind of weird. I know you guys probably might. I don't need to go through all the details of the plot. I'm sure you've all seen it. But the key isn't. The plot is only part of this film. The plot, you know what I'm saying, is why it's so. First of all, it gets very dystopian, and we keep seeing this trope, the same kind of thing over and over again. Orwell 1949 wrote in 1984. Thinking that's 40 something years in the future. So, but it's the visuals in this film that are amazing. And when you think it was made in 1927, I was amazed at the effects that they were doing. The lightning,
I was too.
Stuff like that was really
I was
good.
At a
all the way, because they didn't have the way. A lot of the technology that even for few decades later was there. They didn't have that, so they were shooting a lot of those practical effects with the double imagery. They were literally doing that in camera.
They were exposing,
double exposing,
roll back, expose again, roll it back, expose it again. If that had gone wrong, it was like a huge colossal
start all over again. And in the sets and everything, I thought were pretty. I mean, I know a lot of them were just painted flats, but they did a really good job of giving you a sense of depth to a lot of it.
The sets were stunning. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Does this movie go into like socio-political, economic themes? Yes. Are we going to cover any of that? No. I want to talk about the effects they used.
It is important to point out, though, that Germany in the 1920s was still suffering from the First World War.
Yeah, they were still trying to recover.
They were still recovering. So there was a lot of poverty, which is how he got all the kids for the He had no problem getting 100 some odd
Yeah,
kids
you
to
got
do
all
that
those kids.
scene.
So they touted at the time when the movie was put out, probably to get people to come see the movie, like it's a cast of thousands, like it's like 30,000. It actually wasn't. Later in an interview, Fritz Lang said it was about 500 people. And when you watch the movie and you kind of take stock, you're like, okay, yeah, that's probably
Well,
about 500
he
people.
did get
But if you've
oh, I'm sorry. He did get 1,000 people to do that Babylon Tower of Babel, rather.
yeah, he probably did had a
He did. He
maybe.
wanted 4,000. They couldn't get 4,000 people
I
to
don't think
agree
it
to
was
shave their
1,000 though.
heads.
That doesn't seem
That's
quite
what.
right.
Well, that's what the research that I had. He wanted
Um,
4. He couldn't, but they couldn't get people enough because they all had to shave their heads. And he
Oh,
like they couldn't
yeah,
get
the
it. They only could
slaves.
get
There's
1,000 people
only
agree.
like 50 slaves that go
You got to
in to
remember
shave
again
heads.
the point I brought up, the fact that Germany was very poverty stricken during this time, is it made it very easy for him to get
A lot of people.
people to
The
work, because
other,
they were all just desperate for work.
yeah,
So
they
they were
all wanted
paying these
work.
people, a
Yeah,
little bit, but they were still getting
yeah.
money. So they were
The
willing to do
other
whatever.
thing is, if you guys ever wanted to see what it was like to make a movie before all the like the unions and all the safety rules, and before they had the safety officer and all that kind of stuff, go watch this movie. Like they've got little kids in flooding water. Like I was holding my breath a couple times, like, oh my God, I hope those kids are okay. And like a lot of the stuff, the people were falling and dropping. Remember when in the hallucination scene when he thinks the thing becomes more like there's like
Yeah,
people falling. I'm like, were there
yeah,
cushions down there? I can't tell what is
right.
going
There
on.
must obviously. I don't
Like
think they were just
some of
pushing
the
people
stuff
to
they
their
did,
deaths.
you're like, oh my God, they'd never allow that nowadays.
Yeah,
But yeah, the effects were absolutely stunning for 1927.
yeah.
And
I
yes,
was really
guys,
impressed. I really was.
I was too. I was too. And yes, guys, it is a silent film. So the actors' faces are like uber expressive and everything's maybe a little overacted, which is very common, like completely normal for a silent film. But once you get past that and you like get into the story and you see what they're doing, you're like, oh my God, this is practically modern. Like this is, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no, I
absolutely
mean
stunning.
you could remake this easily today, and I think it, with modern
Oh God, yeah.
Chris
Absolutely. Well, the
Chris is
plot
saying
line still
the
holds up.
creation scene, Maria's creation scene, yes, that was very done amazingly well.
Yeah,
Way ahead of
it
its time. I
was.
mean, I don't know how they even did some of that stuff with the technology they had at the time. As far as
Some of
those
they
rings that kind of went
used,
around her, and
yeah, the rings. How did they do the rings?
I
I
have
never
no
saw
idea.
that.
I don't know
So
idea how
the
they did
special
that.
effects included animation. There was some animation. The spotlights, I don't know if you remember the Tower of Babel and there were spotlights. Those spotlights were actually animated. And to make it move, he would add light and then erase light in the top and then add light and erase light and add light to make it move and then expose it. So that's basically animation. They used stop motion, the cars. They used a ton of projection, like rear projection and front projection, a ton of miniatures and a ton of mirrors. And they were doing super clever things with mirrors where they would like be shooting into the mirror, but scratch off some of the reflective so you could see
Right.
through
That's
it.
how,
So
yeah,
it
it was
would
like a
look
matte
like it was,
painting. Yeah,
yeah.
it
So
was
the
like a
matte
matte
paint,
painting. I forgot they had
um,
somehow had the camera at an angle and a mirror, and then it was they
some
were
of
very,
the techniques they figured out for this movie was the first. They were all firsts of their kind. And then they became standard techniques. They were used, mirrors and mats and miniatures and stop motion and that was all used, by the time Harryhausen was doing stuff by then too, but that was his stock and trade. So yeah, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely phenomenal.
yeah, and I could see why this movie has become, when you look at all the sci-fi tropes in it that we take for granted today, which was probably
They're all in there. They're
this is
all
where
in
a
there.
lot of them came. Well, first of all, the whole Android thing, and the dystopian, the separation of the two of the working
Yep.
class and an
And
elite
the
class.
yep.
This it's kind of this city on this emerald city above, built on top of
Yep.
the backs of these other. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of this stuff is just, you can see I'm watching. I'm like, oh yeah, this is, you can see where this movie got for that, or that book came from that,
Yeah.
came from
So
that.
much. So much
There's
of that. Yeah.
clearly the way they put it together. It was brilliant. It really was. And I don't want to sound like, and at first I was like, well, as always people overthink some of these things. I always say like, it's like, oh, this is a classic and it's just so important but I think this one really merits it
I agree.
because of it really was, because there really wasn't a lot of film before this. to begin with. So there might have been novels. H.G. Wells was writing, obviously, all kinds of fantastic science fiction prior to this. But
when you look at other work of the era, this was staggeringly different. The only other piece from kind of that era that I can think of is, do you know that French film of the moon and the guy,
From the
it's
Earth
like
to
a
the Moon.
voyage to the moon, and
I believe it's called From
mentally
the Earth to the
compare
Moon.
those.
And I was gonna, it's funny, I was gonna bring that one up because I think that one predates this.
I think it does. You know what? Let me
That
Google.
was
I think you're right.
in the teens, I want to say. Yeah, I believe it's called From the Earth to the Moon, and that one was done
1902.
again.
That was 1902.
Yeah.
So okay, admittedly, that's 25 years later. Okay,
yeah,
I'll give him. Or trip.
But
trip
even that one was one of the first science fiction films probably of all time, where they're being shot to the moon by a cannon. They go in a capsule. I mean, there was some accuracy in some of it, but that was an interesting. And I had thought of that too when I was watching that. It did make me think of that film as well. But that's a very short film.
Nosferatu. I think the only other one from the 1920s. What year is 1922? Nosferatu is 1922. That's a good one that everyone knows that we can kind of mentally compare. By the 20s, they were telling full stories. It was still a silent movie, but they were telling full stories, and the process was smoother. You know what I mean? Like they were getting. So it wasn't that weird herky jerky voyage to the moon look. It's like smoothed out, and it looks like.
Right, it's about as a modern film as you're gonna get.
They made this. They made this to be a blockbuster. They were trying to compete with Hollywood, so they did it on purpose to like. And you know what? I'm gonna say they succeeded. It really is a phenomenal piece. Hey, and can I give a mad shout out to Bridget Helm, our lead actress? She was supposedly 17 when she did that, and damn girl, she worked her ass off. I noticed she was like the last person listed on the credits too.
It was interesting because she went on and had a pretty good career after that.
She did.
Almost another 10 years. She was in quite into the sound era, which was
until the Nazis came, and then she was like, "I'm out."
Yeah, well, a lot of them, and Fritz
Lang, he was like, "I'm out."
And they liked him, and they were basically going to give him a pass for being Jewish, and that's when he said, "See ya, I'm going to France."
Yeah.
I think one of them said, we decide who's Jewish. And that's when he said, I'm out of here.
He's like, I'm out.
All the writing on the wall on that one.
Our 17-year-old leading lady, she did a great job being very different as the two different Marias, as Robot Maria versus Human Maria. And she did, they say she was an incredibly uncomfortable shoot for her. She's actually physically getting dragged by her hair. When they bring in the Robot Maria to get burned at the stake, they're physically dragging her by her hair. It's not like nowadays where you have stunt people. Yeah. And no, they dragged this kid by her hair, and then they caught her dress on fire in the burning at the stake scene. She was incredibly uncomfortable in the robot suit. Apparently that cut her and pinched her and like hurt her as she couldn't move and she couldn't breathe in it. But she's
it was funny you bring up the fire the when they're burning her at the stake, because I was looking at that and I'm looking at it, I'm like, you're like, that's not front fire, is it? It's not up here, right? That's not a matte picture. That fire's really there, and she's really standing there.
And she's standing in it. Yes.
No, they didn't have all the safety.
And the flood scene. The flood scene genuinely scared me. Like I bet they lost kids in this scene because damn.
There's a few.
Like that water was moving. Like that water was rushing, and those little kids were just like.
Yeah. It's funny, but you're talking about her acting when she did this. Really, of course, they did their makeup slightly different, so that she had
they did the eyeliner.
She did this constant jerking of her head, and I don't know if the jerking of her head was supposed to be somehow like to tell you that it was evil,
kind of
or that it was robotic.
I read it as like the robot was scanning and looking and scanning and looking.
Because it was very weird because she kept doing this jerky.
But I mean, at least she did it. At least she did something to differentiate.
No, I mean, again, it's like you said, it's a silent film, so they would overact. They're over made up because of the film. And you should, if you think we used to use a lot of lights, you probably should have seen what they had to do for these types of films, because
I know it must have been crazy.
It was and that's why they overmake these people up, because otherwise they would just look flat, especially with black and white film. They would look flat. everybody looks like they're made up like to be like almost like a harlot, like you know what I'm saying? It's over.
Yes,
You
I
can just tell
noticed
even in this
the
that the
makeup.
makeup is like
Yeah, I noticed the makeup on the leading man. Most of the guys I didn't really notice it, but the leading man I noticed, okay, yeah, he's completely made up, but it didn't look right. Like it didn't quite look right
it
back
looked like
when we're
it does for anything else you see at that time.
of that era.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, Martin's mentioning Charlie Chaplin. I didn't know he did a dystopian.
Yeah. Yeah. Charlie
So
Chaplin
same
did
time,
his
and that's the only other things, like I said, I've ever seen from that era. Yes, I've seen clips from Nosferatu. We've all seen those clips.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but
Everything's dark. You can't really make out what's going
yeah,
on.
I mean,
And
I
this is
can't.
what
I've
happens.
never seen that film end to end. So yeah, I would recommend if you guys haven't seen the full version to watch it, just to say you watch it. Although I don't know if just the scenes that were kind of not high quality were the stuff that was missing. I don't
I
I
think
don't
so,
know
yes.
I don't know if it
I
really anything. I didn't notice anything. I was trying to pay attention of anything significant that that changes the story. They were mostly
Yeah,
reaction
actually
shot type
there
stuff.
was I can tell you what happened. I have some notes on that actually. Um when it came to the United States, it did get cut. It made the I keep calling them Morlocks. They're not Morlocks, just the workers. It
Workers.
their cuts made them it cut so that they were made the bad guys. Like they were just the bad guys, and which is not really the story
No, not at
that
all.
I saw. And it cut over the years from almost apparently originally it cut they cut it down to like 88 minutes. The movie I watched was 2.5 hours and it got cut down to 88 minutes. That's a lot of storytelling that that gets eliminated. And so yes, the plot completely changed when they made these edits. And so if you're gonna watch it, I know 2.5 hours is a long time. I know it is, but I cannot recommend that. It's colorized. You can find it colorized if watching black and white is gonna be too boring for you. I do not recommend the version with the pop music. Everyone universally said no, that just didn't work.
I didn't see that one.
And I wouldn't watch anything any shorter than 2 hours because you kind of need to see the whole story to appreciate what they were doing.
Yeah, I
And guys,
don't.
it is German expressionism, which means there's going to be a lot of religious and occultist reference, like symbolism that's going to be happening. But don't worry, it's not like you have to know what it all means. You don't. You'll still get the story, even if you don't
I
know
mean,
what the horror of
the
Babylon
story
is or
is
whatever.
very basic. There's not
Yeah,
a
the story's
lot
very basic.
of plot twisty. I mean, it's a
Mm.
story that we know of. Again,
Yep.
it's that class system. The lower
Yep.
class is getting treated poorly. They want to strike, basically
Uprising. Yep.
uprising and live in the sunlight like with the other people. We've seen it hundreds of times, done over and
Yep.
over and over again in so many, whether it be a TV shows or movies.
Now
So,
throw a
and that's
mad
the
scientist
basis
and a
of it,
robot in
you're
there,
right,
and
and that's
that's
why
it.
I'm saying you're right, because they weren't the bad guys; they were the ones being treated poorly, and the son and Maria wanted to help them and let the father understand that they need to come up. We need to treat them better because they're keeping the city alive.
Mhm.
But there wasn't. That was what the screw up was when the Maria didn't want violence. She just wanted them to
No,
say,
yeah, she was
we're
quite
not going to work anymore
the
until you.
Gandhi of
But
her
now,
of
but
her
then the
clan.
robot version of her went and said, no, destroy the machines, which,
Yes.
of course, they didn't
Which
realize
was
that
stupid. Don't
killing
destroy the machines.
themselves
That's
by
what keeps you
killing by
alive, you
yeah,
idiots.
the machines were keeping them alive as well as everybody else. So
So modern references. Let me kind of run through a few that I caught. The Madonna Express Yourself video is a direct nod to this movie, including with that phrase about between the head and the heart and the hands and the heart, between the heart and the hands, there must be between the head and the hands, there must be the heart, whatever the hell the phrase is. That is directly in that Madonna Express Yourself video. Blade Runner, left, right, and center, including the tower, the Babylon Tower. That tower in Blade Runner is
yeah,
almost a direct nod to the tower in Any Woman robot with a metallic outer shell, of which there have been a bajillion. This is where they got it. There are similar shots, even if the context is different. There's a shot of all the hands going up toward that temple. It's shot from behind, and all you see is hands. It's the exact same shot in Indiana Jones when they ask, "Where did you hear the sound from?" and all the hands point up. Exact same
No, that
shot.
you mean that was not Indiana Jones. That was
Oh yeah, Close
Close
Encounters. Why did
Encounters.
I say Indiana Jones? Good
No.
Lord. My
I'm
brain just
like,
went
no,
nuts.
that
It is
wasn't
Close
in
Encounters.
no,
Let
that's
me
Close
edit
Encounters.
that in my notes because I'm an idiot.
Yeah, that's
Why did
okay.
I say?
Chris is
Why
saying
did I
Joe versus a volcano. Now I've seen that film, Chris. I don't know. Was the reference for them diving into the volcano? I don't know
the
what the reference.
shot? Yeah. Hi, Sarge. The shot of in the cavern, they were in like a cavern with crosses where she was preaching or whatever.
Yeah,
It's just like Planet of the Apes, one of the Planet of the Apes
yes,
movies where they
yeah.
end up
The
in a
second one.
cavern.
Yeah, the second one, Beneath the Planet of
Yeah.
the Apes. Yeah.
Yeah. Any sexy woman Baphomet, sexy woman whore of Babylon dance. Anytime you get a scantily clad woman, but did you know? You wouldn't notice because you probably wouldn't know. But she was directly mimicking the Whore of Babylon painting from 1569 or whatever the hell that painting.
Yeah,
Like
there was
her
that
pose,
whole
she was
yeah,
dressed
that whole
like
thing clearly,
that.
yeah.
It's like,
I didn't recognize what it was, but I did know it. There must have been some significance to it. I'll tell you
yeah,
what was really a weird scene was when he brings her the robot version of Maria, and he brings her to that club and it's all
oh
men.
yeah, and
And
then all
she
the men are
starts
lusting
dancing
after
and
her.
they're
Yeah,
weird, very strange
their lust was
reaction.
very
They're
interesting.
like it was
Germans.
almost cartoon.
Because the eyes, like they literally, their eyes are like.
Yeah, it was the most weird and disturbing scene of the whole movie. But I think I'm like, there's just
It
something
was
not
disturbing,
right
but what
about
does
this
that
scene.
symbolize in the greater plot? That she could
That
control them because
well,
she
that
was
they were
so.
that she was all woman and that they were clearly thinking with other parts than their brain.
But
You
those
know,
were all the up above people, the
those are the
rich people
up
that
above
she.
class. And I guess that was his proof that if she could
I guess.
woo them, she could woo the lower class.
Did you notice that the grand finale of this thing took place on the church roof, just like in Batman? when the Joker's up there, you have Dance with the Devil in the Pale Moonlight.
Yeah.
It's the exact same. Like there were so many like directly linkable moments in this thing that you're like, oh wait, I've seen that before. I've seen that before. I've seen that before. And the whole time I was watching the movie, I had to keep reminding myself, this was the first time it was ever done. This is the first time.
Yeah.
This is the first time. So yeah.
And that's why I think it's like if you sit there and watch it, you will definitely be like, oh yeah, this is so familiar. And you know, you might even realize why, but that because you've seen it before many times.
Yes, you absolutely have.
Before over and over and over again. And that's why we say, how many new stories are there out there? That's like there aren't. It's just what kind of twist can you put into the old stories that make them interesting?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. It was so expensive when they did this too. So expensive.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. I said, I wonder if you translated it into today's dollar.
I'm not sure. They said 5 million Reich marks. What is? That's 1922, so I don't know how inflation. I think I heard a number like 22 million now, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was probably a fair amount of money. I was thinking about it when I was watching it. I'm like, this is probably really expensive in this day to make.
The other thing that I noticed, did you notice this? But this movie correctly predicted a couple things. It correctly predicted like not a Chiron or ticker tape, like running digital numbers. Their numbers were going down. Did you see in his office he had numbers going down?
Yeah, they had the video conferencing. There was the part where he's talking to the guy.
Video chat. Yes,
Video,
that was the
he's
other one I was
talking
going
to
to
the guy.
mention.
He's got the phone thing in his hand, but he's looking
And
at
he
him
had
on
the
the
camera.
screen.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh
He's
my God, they're
talking to
doing
that, I guess,
video
that head
chat. In
engineer.
1927, they're doing video chat in a movie. I honestly, I was kind of stunned by that one. I was like, that's awesome.
I was surprised with that one too. And it just kind of goes to the whole film that they really had a grasp of what the future would look like. You know what I'm saying? We always see that. There's always a very good sense of what clearly the cars were all from the 20s. They didn't modernize the cars.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Things like that. But the rest of the little things they
had,
had the thing with all the lights.
Yeah.
There was something with a lot of lights that were coming on, like those things that we went
his mad scientist laboratory looked reasonably modern. I mean, it wasn't like a Frankenstein laboratory.
Again,
you know what I mean?
We look at that's another great thing though. Look at all the bad scientist labs have a very similar look after that.
They
That
do.
became
There's always something bubbling.
standard.
There's always tubes
It's
and
the
glass
standard now. Well,
beakers
the chemistry stuff, but all the
okay,
like things that are just making lights and
and then
blinking.
flashing
Yeah,
things
it's like that became the
and that one
standard
prop
of the
in Star
mad
Trek.
scientist lab. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, yeah, I was thinking like, oh, there's that. Yep, there's that. There's
Yep.
another thing in there.
Yeah, and her creation was kind of reminiscent of Frankenstein. So I mean, that's which did predate this, but
Well, the book
did a
writing of it,
movie
I don't know when the first
the book?
film of
I don't know.
Frankenstein was.
Time
Somebody,
first
I'm sure, will pop it up.
Let's find out, kids.
No, it had to be after this because it had sound.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Alive, it's alive, it's alive.
1931.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
not
there's
much farther. It's only 4
yeah, it's
years
only
later.
4 or 5 years later.
This must have been just on the cusp of sound.
I think so. Yeah. I also appreciated the music. I believe the version I watched did have the original music. I appreciated it. It was an orchestra, but it was,
Yeah, I
it
don't
says it
know. I don't
crescendoed when it should
know.
crescendo, and it was dramatic when should be dramatic, and it was,
Yeah, no, the music fit the one version I watched. Like I said, there's so many. It's been kind of reworked over the years. The colorized version, which I'm never a fan of colorized anything.
I want to see it though, just to
Unless it
kind of
was originally shot in color. Colorized.
I did watch it in black and white, but now I'm really curious. I don't know that I
Well,
can
it's
sit through
just,
another
again,
2.5 hours.
it's yeah, to see how they did it, what it
I just
looked
want to
like.
see some of the
But my
scenes.
thing is, it's like it's still the interpretation of the person doing the colorizing.
That's
At the end of
true.
the
But
day,
I thought there were rules. Like I
I
thought
mean,
certain wavelengths, you're like, okay, if it's this wavelength, then it's red.
well, usually they can tell from grays some colors, but for the most part, there's a lot of stuff that you can't.
Yeah, I suppose you're
Yellow.
right. There were a couple clips that I watched on YouTube that it looked like it had been done by a computer, and the computer wasn't sure in a few places because sometimes their skin would change color. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
That's what I'm saying. It wasn't shot on. It was shot in black and white. So why?
Oh, Bill's saying the jazz singer was 27. Was the jazz singer 27? Really, Bill? Wow.
Like I said, it must. I don't know when sound became very, or when it was first introduced. I'm sure it was introduced in the United States long before it was introduced in pre-World War II Germany. So especially in the 20s. So it may have been just that Hollywood was more advanced technologically than the rest of the world was, which is probably more what happened. So I'm sure they had sound movies first. Because this was kind of, the 20s and 30s was really when Hollywood became Hollywood, right?
Yeah. So this did not wait. Hang on, I'm looking up the awards for this.
Jeff said the first theatrical films with color were 1929.
Yeah, that sounds about.
I'm okay. I'm just saying if it was shot and produced and originally released in black and white, leave it alone. It's like one of the people that are directors in modern will tell you if you only want the studio to hate a film, tell them you're going to shoot it in black and white.
True.
They had that problem with Young Frankenstein because he wanted to shoot that in black and white to have the feel of the old original Frankenstein movie, and they were very much against it. The studio was very much against it, but they fought and got it.
Well.
Can you imagine somebody colorizing Young Frankenstein?
No, absolutely
not. It would be horrible.
When was the Wizard of? Because my benchmark is kind of always the Wizard of Oz because
30s,
it was a big deal.
35 or something.
It was a big deal for theater goers because remember that movie starts. The opening scenes are in black and white, and then
in transitions when she gets the Oz suddenly.
Yeah. And not only does it get color, but it changes the aspect ratio.
It's wider,
and it like opens up. And I think back then for those people seeing that for the first time, they were like, "What?" They were like when we saw Jurassic Park the first time.
Year. I want to say it's around 1935, give or take.
Yeah, so that's kind of the benchmark for good color, like really good color
and sound. That's when, yeah. So
this, I'm really, when you first suggested this movie, I was a little bit like, But you know what? I am really glad I watched this thing. Really
Yeah,
glad.
I think it's one
Really
of those
surprised at it.
films that if you're a fan of science fiction and you're really a fan of the genre itself and the deepness, we always say there are these films that you need to watch. This is 2001 was certainly one of them. It's benchmark. This is the massive benchmark. Because this to me is where it began. I mean, really
absolutely.
with modern science fiction. I've always called, and we're going to do this one probably this month. We'll do Forbidden Planet, because I always call that the grandfather of modern science fiction. This really was the great grandfather of science fiction in general. I think in the movie, as a film, not in general, but from. So because again, and then it's just there's just so many things that I'm going through in my head, scene by scene, and the mad scientist trope.
Yeah,
he has the wild hair, the long coat.
Yeah, he does. He looks the part. And he has the one hand.
He has one hand for some reason. They never did
dramatic.
He said he lost it as part of his.
It when he lost Hell, I think, or.
No, she's creating the. I don't know when.
He lost it creating Maria.
Yeah,
the robot,
when he was creating the initial thing. What I always thought with me as I'm thinking, I'm like, well, you have your perfect solution in front of you. If he can build this robot, this android, and nobody could tell the difference, it'll do everything a human can do. Because maybe he writes that letter saying, if anybody suspects that this isn't an actual person, basically, then I've failed miserably. Or basically, that's exactly what he said, but to that. And so if he can do that, why doesn't he just mass produce them and fill in your workforce with the robots? And then
right.
Do the thing with the weird clock.
Well, he hadn't got. Oh, the point of that is that it was literally, I don't want to say busy work, but it was literally an example of work that has no meaning. It was very hard work, but it ultimately had no meaning.
Well,
there's a giant game of Chase the Lamb.
It did something, because when he started to get exhausted, they showed like this little ampule thing, like rising up, like pressure was building up because he wasn't whatever, relieving whatever valve or something.
Yeah,
so maybe. It kind of implied that it did do something.
And yet
it seemed like a very silly way to build a machine.
It just looked like pointless work.
So
I don't know.
1910 for Frankenstein.
No, I don't know. As a movie?
Maybe that's when it was written.
1930s, whatever.
Directed by. I don't know what that was, but I don't know if that's not the version we're talking about, though. We're talking about the Universal Studios original Frankenstein.
Yeah, we're talking about
Frankenstein with the "It's Alive," one everybody knows.
I just googled Frankenstein. I've still got 1931 for that, so I don't have anything earlier than that.
So yeah, guys, I can't. I'm actually recommending this movie. I can't believe I am, but I am. Interestingly enough, H.G. Wells did not like this film.
A lot of people did not like this film.
He called it the silliest film.
A lot of people did not appreciate this film. It was naive. Someone called it naive. And you know what? Honestly, the ending where the hero brings the two guys' hands together, that part.
Yeah, that's campy.
All they were saying is that, look, guys, you can still have your two classes. You just got to be nice to each other.
Yeah, they're saying the brain and the hand need the heart to mediate.
The head, which is the.
I always thought it was the I don't know, whatever needs mediation. I don't know if it's the heart that should be the one mediating.
If it means you should have compassion for each other, I guess maybe, but I mean, it's not going to work for actual, like, if the union's on strike, it's not really going to work. You got to negotiate that stuff.
Yeah. I'm trying to see what else we could say about this thing. I don't know what else to say about it.
Notes here. Oh, if we're not going to dive into any of the symbolism, which it's, oh God, guys, there's so much. There's so
Much,
much.
like I think I heard it. Much to Fritz Lang's chagrin, it's Hitler's favorite movie.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
So
yeah, and guys, I mean, throw the politics of it away. Just look at the movie as what they achieved for 1927.
yeah, he did model the city after New York. That's where he got the
he got the inspiration from seeing
New York. He had gone to New York City and saw the tall buildings and the glass and the bright lights, and it gave him that. That's what he kind of felt the modern, and he was probably on point.
Yeah, he probably was. Yeah. Sorry, I know you guys can hear my dogs. I apologize.
Footage of the film was used by Queen's Radio Gaga.
Yeah, yes, footage gets used every now and again.
It's been used by a ton of stuff. We've seen that scene where he turns the robot into Maria, or into the thing. One of the interesting things is nobody really that I can think of died in this film. Like, I was really expecting one of the main characters to be killed.
I guess some workers got killed.
Some workers when things blew up, but I mean, certainly none of the main characters.
Machine. Did you notice what he did with the machine? Do you remember the very kind of early in the movie when the freighter, whatever his name is, wanders down and he sees for the first time the workers and the machines down? It's when he has his hallucination. Did you notice how they framed that? Not just framed it, but how they did it. The workers were moving like as if they were part of the machine. Like they were very automated. You know what I mean? They just go over here, pull the lever, go over there, push the button, go over here, pull the lever, go over. And then when they showed the workers at large, it was always wide frame. Like it was always a wide shot and just workers. They never singled in on anyone. They only zoomed in and singled out people from the rich people from the upper levels. The workers were always kind of en masse. And I think that was deliberate. I know it was deliberate to show that they were just seen as
they were just a cog. They were just part of the machine.
Yeah, they're all dressed the same. There was no individuality. They're dressed the same. They shuffle along the same. They work the machine the same. And when the machine blew and they were falling and dying, they got replaced before the dead bodies were picked up and moved out. And the injured people were moved out. The new workers were in there already working. Like that was the priority. And I think that was his way of making as powerful a statement as he could for the day, for the era, for 1927. I liked it.
I think it's a very he's trying to make a statement obviously on society. There was obviously a class system. There still is a class system.
Yes.
As we know in this country, anywhere in the world. So it's not quite this black and white, but we all know that there are the people that are always going to be the ones at the bottom working to support and
unfortunately
keep the infrastructure running, and then the people that are just sitting on top, with it. So it's still, I think this movie still is relevant today. I think it's still relevant, certainly as a classic film, in the fact that it launched so many things, so many just things in science fiction in general. And I don't know if they considered it at that time science fiction. I think it was considered fiction, obviously, but it wasn't really considered. I mean, it's dystopian.
I think
dystopian kind of combination.
Yeah, dystopian. Honestly, at that time when it was released, I think they were completely focused on the political message or the socioeconomic message. I don't think there was a lot of focus on it. Oh, hey, there's a robot, and you know what I mean. I think they were completely focused.
Yeah, that's. I think the robot part of it was just it was just their vehicle.
Yeah,
to push the story along. It was not the focus, and yet when people hear or see Metropolis, what clip do they always show?
Maria, the robot.
Maria turning into
She's on the poster for it.
Yeah, I mean it's true. So now, but I mean it's still just the vehicle for this story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Chris says they called it melodrama. Chris, I don't think it was quite a melodrama. A drama, maybe, but not a melodrama. I'm not sure. Has anyone ever tried to remake it? No, they've recut it a bunch of times and they redid it with pop music or rock music.
I remember
that like that, but I don't recommend it.
I want to say that was the 80s, wasn't it, when that was done?
I should know that because it's in my notes, but
yeah, it kind of gave it a resurgence of people awareness of
it. It did give it a resurgence, yeah.
But the fact that people still reference it today, 100 years,
Yeah.
almost 100 years later, and still look back on
Yeah, the Giorgio Moroder. I don't know how to say his name. It's 1984. You're absolutely right. It is it was 1984 and it was only 83 minutes long, and they had a bunch of people doing music: Freddie Mercury, Bonnie Tyler, Pat Benatar, Adam Ant, a couple others. I don't know, man.
I'm
Loverboy,
almost
Billy
curious to like
Squire.
kind of skip through and watch it and see what it looks like, because I didn't see it back then.
But the problem is, if it's edited down to 88, 83 minutes, however many minutes, they've completely taken most of the plot out. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to mean anything. If it's going to still have the same message to it. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could just watch it and appreciate it. Hey, wow, look what they did in 1927. But you're not getting the whole gist of the story.
No, and I think you need to see it, the whole thing, what was intended. I think to cut it up, like I said, obviously changes the entire plot. All right. Well, I think that's right. So I think next week, I had it in my head what we were going to do. I was going to
tell me what it is, because I'm excited.
It wasn't Forbidden Planet. Oh, we were going to do the Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh, Day the Earth Stood Still. Let me write that down.
Another significant milestone. It 1951, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Somewhere in there.
So we're going to do that next week, and then probably, I don't know where that brings us.
That gets us to the end of January. And oh my God, how the hell did we get to the end of January already?
Yeah, then I think we'll probably end January with Forbidden Planet.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, are you going to ask Alex, since you made her watch it?
Maybe. Yeah, I did. I sat with Alex and watched it. So.
Super quick. Roy has pushed his what was he gonna do last week?
He's gonna do Runaway.
Runaway, yes, thank you. Roy has rescheduled Runaway to Friday. Phil, I can tell you what Phil is doing, because this Friday, so tomorrow he'll be covering from 12 to 2, he'll be covering the Bill McNulty show, doing politics. Friday night he's doing music. Next Friday, the 26th, all of us, Rizzo and I and a few others, will be joining him, and we will be talking For All Mankind. I am super excited about that conversation. I love that show, and it should be interesting.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that next week when we.
Yep. So so we got a couple weeks planned out. How about that? Unusual.
Yes. Look at us go.
I know, right? Crazy.
I like this deep dive. I like going in the Wayback Machine to see how they were doing it back in the old days.
Yeah, I thought it was a good place to go to, since we did 2001, and we all know that had very significant importance in many ways. So who knows?
Yes.
We'll make it. Every once in a while we're going to throw some of these old ones in there, because they need to be discussed.
They have their place in history. Yes.
So. All right. On that note, it's a little early, but I think we've kind of wrapped it up. Guys, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next week with the original version, not the remake, of The Day the Earth Stood Still.
I might watch both just to be.
Should not have been remade. So, but until then, live long and prosper, and may the force be with you. If I can get to the end button.